So in our last video, we looked at budget pedals and how they work with synthesizers and drum machines, guitar staples. Well, today we're going to look at the big player, Strymon. These pedals are absolutely stunning. Are you ready to hear them? I know that I am. Let's go. Hello, Internet. Chris Cline here with Alamo Music Center in San Antonio. And today we're going to look at 5 of Strymon's pedals. Now, I know that this is becoming a trend with us talking about guitar pedals and synthesizers and drum machines. Well, that's because these pedals aren't just limited to guitars. They can be used across any number of things. You can use them as effect sends and returns in your mobile rig, in the studio, and of course with your synthesizers and drum machines. And we're going to explore these pedals today and how they sound and what they can offer you, the bedroom producer, the professional, the touring musician, how they can expand your palette of sounds and spaces. So first off in our lineup is Strymon's Nightsky. Now, as you can see, it's a nice size box. You know, if you're going to put this onto a pedal board, it's going to eat that real estate real fast. But it could also maybe be the only reverb you need on your pedal board or in your synth rig. The thing that's really special about this pedal is it's not just a basic reverb, and that's what this is. It is a reverb pedal, but it adds a bunch of modulation capabilities to the reverb circuit, if you will. For those of you that are familiar with Robert Fripp and Brian Eno and their use of Eventide's processors, the H series, you're going to get a lot of those sounds out of this. Reverbs that have a lot of pitch shifting and shimmering capabilities. And with those capabilities, you can actually do all kinds of things. You can change the intervals at which they are shimmering, if you will. You can change the thickness of the shimmer. You can change the drive. There's so much you can do. I mean, look at all the knobs in here. We've got speed, depth, length, size, pitch. You have an independent reverb and dry pot as well, so you can blend those to whatever you feel, really. But the thing that's really, really cool on this pedal is it has a sequencer. There's 8 buttons here, and you can assign a different reverb algorithm to each button. Not only that, you can sync the reverb, or excuse me, the sequencer to MIDI. So it's going to follow MIDI clock, and it's going to follow the pattern of your drum machine, or maybe you have some sort of cool arpeggio or sequence happening with your synthesizer. It's going to do that for you automatically. Now, if you are a guitarist, you can actually tap through it on stage as well. So you can actually have 8 individual presets that you can tap through. This pedal's amazing. It really is. And I know it sounds hyperbolic, but I got lost in this pedal when I plugged it in for about 4 hours and couldn't get enough. Now on the back, we do have a separate instrument and line inputs, or excuse me, we have a switch for line and instrument. We have a stereo input and stereo output, an expression pedal input as well, USB-C, and then MIDI in and MIDI out. There's full MIDI implementation on here, so you can control every single parameter in this box via MIDI. Now, we can talk about all this stuff, the technical aspect of it all day, but what you really need to do is hear what this box sounds like, and let's go ahead and do that right now. So next up in our line is Strymon's BigSky. This pedal has received all kinds of accolades, and rightly so. It's the best reverb pedal I've ever heard, and I should probably try to be impartial because we're dealing with all kinds of different vendors and distributors, but this pedal sounds so great. And I would like to A/B this pedal up against something like a Bricasti, which is a $3,000 reverb box. I wonder where this pedal is going to suffer, if it's going to suffer at all, because every reverb that I dialed in on this pedal sounds stunning. And there's no shortage of what you can dial in. You've got rooms, halls, plates, spring, swell, which actually has a crescendo to the reverb, bloom, which is another kind of a shimmery type of reverb. Then you have cloud, chorale, shimmer, magneto, nonlinear, which does all kinds of weird things, as well as reflections. Now, nonlinear might be familiar to those of you that have been in the studio world for a while, and you've worked on some of the Lexicon boxes, the 480L, the PCM 80, PCM 90, 240, the list goes on and on. Nonlinear was always something that existed in those boxes, and it's a very, very strange reverb that kind of defies any types of physics you would have in the real world with reflections. Again, there's no limit to what you can dial in or dial out. You have your decay, you have a pre-delay, which is the time it's going to take for the reverb to fire. You have your tone, which is going to make it darker or brighter. You have just one single mod knob on here, which is going to react differently depending on which type of reverb algorithm you're using. And then you also have your mix, and then you have two parameter buttons, two parameter pots, which are assignable. Now, you also have 3 different switches so you can bank up and down. So you can actually tailor this box to have 3 different presets on here that you can dial in at any given time. Now, on the back, once again, we have stereo ins and outs, expression pedal, and then we have the switch here that says cab filter off and on. If you turn this on, it gives you a cab emulation, if you will, which is basically like an impulse response of what a guitar cabinet would sound like, which might be very effective depending on what you're trying to achieve with the sound of the reverb, if you're going directly into the box off of a keyboard drum machine or a guitar, or back into your mobile rig, your live sound rig, or in the studio. We lose the MIDI, or excuse me, the USB-C option on here that doesn't exist. But once again, if you need to use MIDI, you have full MIDI implementation through the 5-pin MIDI in and out, and you can control every single parameter via MIDI. So you can get really, really creative with this box, especially if you're working in the box and you're shooting MIDI out to this and you're controlling it and basically sequencing the MIDI parameters. So fantastic box. The reverbs are massive. They sound absolutely stunning. This is going to be a go-to box for a lot of people. I'll quit talking. Let's listen to it. And as we move down the line, we're going to look at the timeline. The timeline is a delay box, and this is the box that I got lost in the most. And honestly, it's my next purchase for my home studio. I spent, I don't know, 8 hours, literally, just sitting in front of my Pro Tools rig with an assortment of synthesizers and drum machines, and did everything that I possibly could with this in that amount of time, and I could probably spend a whole year and never run out of spaces to play with. I can't begin to tell you how much fun this is. And every type of delay you would ever want, except for a couple that are on here, are represented here. And this does tape delays as well, that's where this really excels. But we have, a digital tape, digital bucket, or bucket brigade. Once again, I've said that a lot. It's an old circuit that was developed in the 70s. Very, very cool, very degraded. That's in here. Dual, pattern, reverse. Ice, which is another type of shimmery type of delay. So, we take what we have here in the Nightsky, and I think that they probably plug some of those algorithms into here, because you've got that type of feel here, as well as a tremolo delay, filter, lo-fi, and with the filter and lo-fi, you can manipulate those even more by accessing the filter here. And with the lo-fi and the filter settings for the delay algorithms, the filters change and the lo-fi aspect can change over time. Well, you can get more control out of those settings from the filter here, as well as you can add more grit to it, which really takes it into a really just kind of a crusty, dirty zone, which is really, really nice. And then you have your speed and depth for modulation, which is going to affect pitch and or time. Once again, this pedal is so much fun, and you can actually use the inputs and outputs in the back to create a feedback loop that you can incorporate into your guitar rig or other types of keyboards or drum machines, or into your DAW. Now, the cleanest way to do it into your DAW, if you want to use it as an effects send and return, is just do the left in, left out, right out, and then use an aux in your DAW and spit stuff into here and back out. Now, you also have the option to tap, which these days you got to have that. And you also can use this as a looper. I can't remember how long it'll loop for. I would imagine it's for a pretty substantial amount of time. We can bounce information back and forth down the comments. But I really just got lost in playing with this strictly as a delay box and not as a looper. And again, it was a full day of me just like staring at this and keyboards and manipulating resonances and different sounds on the drum machine and dialing stuff in here and seeing how far I could take it. And I can take it a lot further, and you can too. Once again, we have our stereo ins and outs, expression pedal. We have our switch to turn it into an effects loop, and then we have our MIDI in and out. Full MIDI implementation once again, so you can sequence everything, control everything via MIDI coming off of your DAW, or if you have some other type of sequencer that you want to use. There's no USB-C on here once again, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, if they did a Timeline version 2 or Mark II and they incorporated the USB-C, because I think people are going to want to have that control once they're in their DAW, as opposed to using 5-pin DINs. So let's take a listen to what the Timeline can do, and then we will move forward. And so we're going to move on to another delay pedal. This one, the Volante, emulates tape delays as well as drum delays. Now we do have some tape delays in here, right, in the timeline, but the Volante is strictly that, tape and drum. Now a drum delay uses a drum, it's a metal drum with a wire around it with a series of 4 heads. And the drum spins and the signal is recorded and regurgitated, if you will, across those 4 heads. The most famous of the drum delays is the Benson Echo Rec, which I believe was invented in Italy. You know, I don't know that I've actually ever used one of those personally, but when we jump into the tape delays, I have used plenty of those, whether it be an Echoplex or any of the Roland Space Echoes. And there's also a studio tape delay on here as well, which I have also put together in studios where you take a series of tape machines and you get a big loop of tape and you run it through all the tape machines and you send your signal through there and you create a feedback loop using multiple heads, or you can just use one head. But this does all that for you in the digital domain, and it sounds really, really accurate in regards to what the original analog units sound like. Not only that, it gives you a spring tank as well. So you can feed the delay circuits directly into a spring reverb to give you even more space. Now, this pedal, once again, you have the option to tap. You can plug in favorites. You can go into reverse. There's so much you can do with it, but it's not as flexible as the timeline. Again, different flavors, and all these flavors don't exist in here. If you really like those old, more degraded type of tape delays, this is probably your first stop. This is going to give you basically one flavor. This is going to give you more, and you can manipulate the parameters of those old style delays, tape and drum delays, pretty much infinitely on here. It has a cool finish too. It's like this mustard yellow sparkle. Let's go around to the back. Now, once again, we have a line and instrument switch, just like we had over here on the Nightsky. We have our stereo ins and stereo outs, expression pedal. Our USB-C is back on this, as well as our MIDI in and MIDI out. Once again, with our MIDI in and MIDI out and the USB-C, we have full functionality or full MIDI implementation. So we can basically, once again, save all kinds of parameters, or excuse me, we can manipulate and sequence parameters coming off of our DAW or another sequencer, if you will. We also have these buttons down here for playback and feedback. And so we can do more in regards to, I guess, sequencing, if you will, and playing with loops and manipulating the delays that we have that are within this box. So let's take a listen to this one. And last but certainly not least is the Mobius. And the Mobius is all things modulation. It does everything: filter, phaser, vibe, rotary, or B3 Leslie emulator, flanger, chorus, quadratune, destroyer, auto swell, pattern tremolo, vintage trem, formant filter. Oh my God, it does it all. And this was another one, much like the Timeline, where I spent almost a whole day just diving into this pedal and seeing how far I could take it. I literally spent 2 hours with just one patch on my Korg Minilog XD, just dialing in anything and everything that I possibly could with this. And it's infinite. There is nothing that you can't do as far as modulation is concerned with the Mobius. It is so much fun, and they've made it really, really easy out of the box. The primary controls you're going to be dealing with when you're dealing with the Mobius are going to be your speed and your depth, because when we're talking about modulation, we're talking about how fast and how much. How fast and how deep is the phaser or the flanger? How much chorus? How much are we detuning the chorus? And it's all right here. Now, of course, you can get deeper with the other parameter knobs, but you're going to be dealing with the speed and the depth more often than not. Now on the back, once again, we have stereo input and stereo output, full MIDI implementation, so you can plug it into your DAW, you can sequence all kinds of parameters and change things during the course of your production. It really is a beast, and I know that I'm going to be adding this to my arsenal here pretty soon as well, but the Timeline is first for me right now because it was just so much fun, especially with drum machines. Oh my gosh. With this one, I didn't plug any drum machines into the Mobius. I stayed into the realm of synthesizers, synthesis, and it took me to some far out places. It got pretty psychedelic. So without further ado, let's listen to what the Mobius can do. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me and, well, Alamo Music Center as we, surfed down this line of Strymon pedals and listened to various synthesizers and drum machines. Once again, these pedals, these are your big spender pedals. These aren't as friendly on the pocketbook as the Boss pedals and MXR pedals that we looked at in the last video, but these do a whole lot more flexibility, more connectivity, stereo ins and outs. There's significantly more living in these pedals than the Boss pedals. Now, don't get me wrong, those Boss and MXR pedals are absolutely fantastic, and I have a fleet of those at home as well that I plug various drum machines and synthesizers into. But these are gonna take you to different places, and they're gonna give you a whole lot more at the end of the day, significantly more. This is a conversation that I would like to continue with you, the viewers that are watching this channel. Please comment below. We want to have this, be a communal experience, and we want to keep this conversation flowing. Once again, we are going to upload, or we have uploaded, we have uploaded all the sound clips to our new SoundCloud page. So that link is at the bottom. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're gonna come back with more on, well, everything. Pedals, individual synthesizers, Zach's videos, and please look at our guitar channel and our piano channel as well. We've got more coming at you from there. From those angles, we just have a lot in store for you. We want you to learn as much as you possibly can about all these amazing instruments and gadgets that exist today. I would have loved to have had all this when I was a kid, but now, I have it now, so I really can't complain. We're getting close to the holidays, so everybody have a very, very safe and happy holidays to all of you in the whole universe. Let's be well and good to each other, and let's be peaceful, and let's just have a good time and make music, and let's share our love for all these wonderful devices and instruments that exist. Maybe until next year, thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.